My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm 34 years old, a marketing manager living in Seattle. Or at least that's what everyone in my family thinks I do. In our family, I was always the backup plan, the one no one took seriously, especially compared to my younger sister Emily, the decorated Navy captain and golden child of the family. It was March 15th, 2024, at exactly 7:42 p.m. in my parents' oak-paneled dining room. The family had gathered for our annual reunion dinner, crystal glasses clinking against fine china as conversations flowed around me. I sat quietly, letting the familiar waves of disappointment wash over me as my relatives did what they always did, mock my civilian life. "Still pushing pixels at that marketing firm?" my cousin Claire asked with a smirk. "Some of us have real careers." My Aunt Margie leaned toward my mother and whispered something that ended with, "Such a shame," her eyes flickering toward me with practiced pity. That's when Captain Joseph Marston, my sister's commanding officer, who'd been invited as a guest of honor, cleared his throat and said, "Welcome back, Major General Bennett." That one line changed every perception in the room, and my life forever. Growing up in suburban Boston with retired Navy captain parents created a specific kind of pressure. My father, Robert Bennett, had served with distinction for 30 years. My mother, Linda, had been a commander before retiring to raise us. They expected excellence, but more specifically, they expected military excellence. Emily embraced that path. 4 years younger than me, she'd always been the natural athlete, the strategic thinker, the one who looked right in a uniform. By the time she was 30, she'd been promoted to captain and collected enough medals to sink a small boat. Me? I went into marketing. "You still work with ad jingles?" Aunt Margie had asked on July 4th, 2018, her voice dripping with disdain as fireworks exploded overhead. She'd just finished telling everyone about her latest investment banking triumph. "They're not jingles," I'd corrected, the words weak even to my own ears. "They're integrated digital marketing campaigns." My father had simply shaken his head and turned back to Emily, who was describing her latest deployment. The pattern continued for years. On November 20th, 2019, during my birthday dinner at the Willowbrook estate, my father called my raise peanuts compared to what Emily would make with her next promotion. At Christmas brunch in 2021, cousin Claire, who was in her second year of law school, had asked if I'd finally move out of Mom's basement. I had been living in my own apartment in Seattle for 6 years by then, but no one seemed to remember that detail. "You'll never be as disciplined as your sister," Mom would remark, not even looking up from polishing Emily's service medals that sat proudly displayed in the living room cabinet. My college diploma was somewhere in a drawer. The final straw came at the Bennett family reunion dinner at the Hamilton Plaza in Boston. 30 relatives gathered around a massive table, the chandelier casting everyone in a golden glow as my father stood to make a toast. "To Emily," he said, raising his glass. "Just promoted to captain, the youngest woman in her division to achieve the rank." Applause erupted around the table. Then he looked at me, his smile tightening. "At least one of my daughters does something important." The room fell silent. My hands shook around my water glass. In that moment, the weight of my $75,000 in student loans felt heavier than ever, despite the fact I'd paid them off 3 years ago. "I just closed a $500,000 campaign for Evergreen Financial Services," I said, my voice barely audible above the sound of forks against plates. My mother rolled her eyes. "That's nice, dear." That's when I knew. I had to stop playing their victim. What my family didn't know, what I had carefully kept from them for years, was that marketing manager was just my cover. While they'd been dismissing my career choices, I had founded Bennett Strategic Solutions, a consulting firm that had quietly grown to generate $1.2 million in annual revenue. I was a silent partner in 3 successful Seattle restaurants, the Blue Oak Bistro, Tuscany Gardens, and Meridian Tap House, and I held patent royalties from a viral social media analytics tool that major corporations were fighting to license. I'd kept it secret for many reasons, partly to protect Emily's feelings. She'd always needed to be the successful one. partly because I didn't want to participate in my family's constant competition, but mostly because I'd been planning something bigger, something they would never see coming. I spent the next 2 months gathering evidence of my success. Bank statements showing the monthly deposits from my various ventures. Patent documents with my name clearly listed as the primary inventor. Email threads with major clients like Cascade Technologies and Meridian Investments, praising my work and requesting expanded contracts. I consulted with Whitfield Legal Group about the timing and presentation of my revelations. Everything had to be perfect, indisputable. The strategic timing was crucial. Emily's promotion gala was scheduled for May 30th, 2024, at the Grand Windsor Ballroom in Chicago. 200 guests would attend, including our entire family and high-ranking Navy officers. It would be the perfect stage. What nobody expected was that I had an ally, Captain Joseph Marston. He wasn't just Emily's commanding officer. He was also aware of my covert service in the Space Reserve Corps, a newly formed military branch that operated under strict secrecy protocols. I had been serving for 7 years, rising through the ranks while maintaining my civilian cover. Captain Marston had been sworn to secrecy until now. The night of the gala arrived. The Grand Windsor Ballroom transformed into a sea of dress uniforms and evening gowns. I arrived fashionably late, wearing not the simple black dress my family would have expected, but a tailored suit adorned with military insignia. Major General Bennett, Space Reserve Corps. The whispers started immediately, heads turned, conversations halted mid-sentence. As I walked toward my family's table, a projector screen behind the stage lit up with my company's revenue charts, patent awards, and my Space Corps commendations. Captain Marston had arranged it all. My mother's jaw dropped, her fingers clutching her pearls in shock. I didn't know," my father stammered, his face pale beneath the ballroom lights. Emily stepped forward, her eyes wide. "You never told me." Around us, the reactions varied. Aunt Margie leaned toward her husband, whispering frantically, "How did she hide that?" Cousin Claire simply nodded, a look of reluctant admiration crossing her features. Captain Marston approached, saluting me with perfect formality. "Major General Bennett, your presence has been requested at the Pentagon next week. Your leave of absence from active duty has been terminated." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, something unexpected happened. My father, Robert Bennett, retired Navy captain, stood up and walked to the microphone at the center of the stage. His hands trembled slightly, something I had never seen before. "I owe my daughter Sarah a public apology," he said, his voice echoing through the ballroom. "For years, I failed to see her true accomplishments. I belittled her choices without understanding them. Tonight, I stand corrected and immensely proud." My mother joined him, tears streaking her usually composed face. "We had no idea. Sarah, please forgive us." Within hours, the story exploded on social media. Welcome back. Sarah began trending, and my follower count jumped by 250,000 overnight. The narrative of the underestimated daughter who secretly became both a business mogul and a high-ranking military officer captured the public imagination. The family dynamics shifted immediately. My parents volunteered to host a charity gala for my foundation supporting women in STEM fields. Emily, initially shocked, quickly adapted to her new role, proudly introducing me as her sister at military functions. Bennett Strategic Solutions won a $2 million government contract the following month. My partnerships between civilian businesses and military operations created innovative solutions that neither sector could have developed alone. But the most significant change was within myself. I no longer sought family approval or validation. I had found my confidence and self-worth beyond their limited perceptions. It's been 14 months since that night. My company just topped $5 million in revenue, and I've been promoted to Lieutenant General in the Space Reserve Corps. My family relationships have transformed, built now on mutual respect rather than hierarchy or tradition. I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or destructive. Sometimes It's simply revealing your true worth on your own terms, at the perfect moment. If your family underestimates you, remember, silence can be your greatest weapon, and your comeback your finest victory. The night of my revelation at the Grand Windsor Ballroom started like any other Bennett family gathering, with me feeling invisible. I arrived early, watching the ballroom fill with Navy brass and extended family, all orbiting around Emily like planets around a sun. My parents greeted acquaintances with practiced charm, introducing Emily to everyone important while I hovered near the appetizer table, nursing a glass of champagne. I overheard Aunt Margie telling a cluster of officers that Emily was continuing the proud Bennett tradition. I checked my watch. Captain Marston would arrive in 20 minutes. Everything was in place. I slipped away to the bathroom, changing from my conservative black dress into the tailored uniform I'd hidden in my car. The weight of the insignia felt strange, yet right on my shoulders. 7 years of Secret Service, and finally, I could wear my rank openly. My phone buzzed with a text from Captain Marston. "Ready when you are, General." I took a deep breath, studying my reflection. Gone was the meek marketing manager they thought they knew. Standing tall in the mirror was Major General Sarah Bennett, the highest-ranking member of the Bennett family in 3 generations. When I re-entered the ballroom through the side door, the first person to notice me was Cousin Claire. She had been midway through a story about her latest courtroom triumph when she spotted me. Her champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound drew attention. Heads turned, conversations paused, and a wave of confusion spread through the crowd. Emily saw me next. She was standing with a group of junior officers, laughing at something. When her eyes landed on my uniform, the laugh died in her throat. "Sarah?" she called across the room, loud enough that everyone turned to look. I walked forward with the posture and confidence of my rank. The sea of guests parted before me, whispers erupting in my wake. My father, mid-conversation with an admiral, turned just as I approached. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief as his eyes registered my insignia. "What is this?" he demanded, though his voice lacked its usual authority. Before I could answer, Captain Marston appeared at my side, saluting sharply. "Major General Bennett, everything is prepared as requested." The projector screen behind us flickered to life, displaying a series of documents. The first was my official commission in the Space Reserve Corps, dated 7 years earlier. Next came financial statements from Bennett Strategic Solutions, showing the company's growth from startup to industry leader. Patent documents followed. Then headlines from business publications praising my innovation and leadership. "I don't understand," my mother said, her voice small. "You're a marketing manager." "That was my cover," I replied evenly. Bennett Strategic Solutions has been operating under classified contracts with various government agencies. My position in the Space Reserve Corps required maintaining a civilian identity. The admiral beside my father studied me with new interest. "Bennett, you're the one behind the Cascade Protocol? That was brilliant work." "General." My father's face paled further. The Cascade Protocol had been front-page news in military circles for months, a revolutionary security system that had saved countless lives. "Thank you, Admiral," I responded. "We have Phase 2 launching next quarter." Emily pushed through the crowd, her captain's insignia gleaming under the ballroom lights. 7 years?" she asked, her voice a mixture of hurt and admiration. "You've been doing this for 7 years and never said anything?" "I was under orders," I explained. "The program was classified until recently." "But you outrank me," she said, the realization dawning in her eyes. "You outrank Dad." A smile tugged at my lips. "Yes, I do." The room had fallen completely silent, everyone watching our exchange with fascination. This wasn't the script they had expected for the evening. Captain Marston cleared his throat. "If I may, General Bennett has been instrumental in developing the space-based defense systems that now protect our satellites and orbital stations. Her technological innovations have advanced our capabilities by an estimated decade." My father's expression was unreadable. My mother looked like she might faint. Aunt Margie pushed forward. "But what about your marketing job? The ads and jingles?" A perfect cover, I answered. Who would suspect a marketing manager of designing military defense systems? And Bennett Strategic Solutions has 16 employees, all brilliant minds working on projects that will change both civilian and military sectors. The Blue Oak Bistro, my mother said suddenly. That restaurant you always recommend when we visit Seattle. You own it, don't you? I nodded. Along with Tuscany Gardens and Meridian Tap House, they're side investments. Cousin Claire looked like she'd been slapped. Last Christmas, she'd loudly criticized the service at Tuscany Gardens, unaware that I owned it. I'd simply smiled and made a note to speak with the manager later. The Admiral checked his watch. I believe we should move forward with the ceremony, Captain Bennett's promotion, and perhaps a special recognition for the Major General? My father finally seemed to recover his voice. Yes, of course. He straightened his posture, years of military discipline taking over. We should proceed. As everyone moved toward their seats, Emily caught my arm. Why didn't you tell me? She asked quietly. All these years, I thought that you were the successful one. I finished for her. You are. My path was different, but that doesn't diminish yours. Her eyes searched mine. I used to brag about you, to my friends, my marketing genius sister who could sell ice to penguins. I hadn't known that. All I'd ever heard were the criticisms, the comparisons. I'm proud of you, Em, I said sincerely. I always have been. She smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were truly sisters again, not competitors. The ceremony began with Emily's promotion, though it now felt anticlimactic compared to the revelation of my secret career. When it was my turn to be recognized, the Admiral spoke at length about contributions I'd made that my family had never known about. My father approached the microphone afterward, his face solemn. I've spent 30 years in service, he began, and I thought I understood what duty meant. Tonight, I've learned that duty wears many faces, and excellence comes in forms I failed to recognize. He turned toward me. Major General Sarah Bennett, my daughter, I salute your service and your success. He rendered a perfect salute, and the room followed suit. Hundreds of hands raised in respect. It wasn't the revenge I had planned. It was better. The morning after the gala, I woke to my phone buzzing incessantly. Overnight, the story had leaked to the press, probably from one of the junior officers who couldn't resist such juicy gossip. Hidden General, the double life of Sarah Bennett, screamed one headline. Space Force secret revealed at Navy Gala, proclaimed another. I had expected some attention, but not this media storm. By noon, 3 news vans were parked outside my hotel. My father called just as I was considering ordering room service to avoid the lobby. Sarah, he said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, your mother and I would like to have breakfast with you, just us. I agreed, arranging to meet them in a private dining room downstairs. They were already seated when I arrived, both looking like they hadn't slept. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her usually perfect makeup subdued. We've been talking all night, my father began without preamble, about how blind we've been. My mother reached across the table for my hand. Why didn't you tell us about any of it? The question was simple but layered with years of complicated history. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Or would you have found a way to diminish it, like everything else I've done? My father flinched. We've been that bad? Worse, I admitted. Do you know what it's like to dread family gatherings because you know you'll be the punching bag? To have every accomplishment dismissed as trivial? My mother's tears spilled over. I never realized. I thought we were pushing you to excel. There's a difference between pushing someone to excel and making them feel worthless, I said. Emily thrived under pressure. I shut down. My father nodded slowly. Different tactics for different soldiers. I should have seen that. I'm not a soldier, Dad, or at least, not in the way you always wanted. He smiled wryly. No, you're a general. Outranking your old man by quite a margin. For the first time, I saw genuine respect in his eyes, not just because of my rank, but because I had forged my own path. "Tell us everything," my mother said. "From the beginning, we want to know who our daughter really is." So I did. I told them about being recruited for the Space Reserve Corps during graduate school because of my thesis on neural networks, about building Bennett Strategic Solutions as both a legitimate business and a cover for classified work, about the patents and the restaurants, and the years of living a double life. It wasn't all about revenge, I assured them. I genuinely couldn't tell you about the military work, but the business success, yes, I kept that quiet because I was tired of being compared and found wanting. "And now?" my father asked. "Where do we go from here?" I considered the question. "Now we start over, as equals." They nodded, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt my parents seeing me, really seeing me. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "The Admiral wants to have dinner tonight. Apparently, you're the talk of the Navy." I smiled. Things were changing, faster than I had anticipated. 3 days after the gala, I reported to the Pentagon as ordered. The Space Reserve Corps had maintained a small office there, though most of our operations ran from secure facilities elsewhere. General Harrison, my commanding officer, greeted me with a knowing smile. "Made quite a splash. Didn't you, Bennett? Not exactly how we planned to reveal your division to the public." "Sorry, sir. Family matters complicated things." He waved away my apology. "Actually, the timing works in our favor. The Appropriations Committee meets next week, and your sudden popularity might help our budget requests." The corridor buzzed with activity as we walked toward the briefing room. Junior officers stopped to salute, some with obvious curiosity in their eyes. Word had spread quickly. "Your sister's captain, Marston. He's being considered for a cross-branch liaison position," General Harrison mentioned. "Good man. Kept your secret all these years despite the conflict of interest with your sister." "He understood the importance of the work," I replied. Inside the briefing room, a team was already assembled. Scientists, strategists, and fellow officers I had worked with for years. They greeted me with respectful nods, no one mentioning the recent media attention. "The Cascade Protocol is fully implemented," Dr. Whitman reported, bringing up detailed schematics on the main screen. "Phase 2 is ahead of schedule, thanks to the algorithms General Bennett developed last quarter. For the next 3 hours, we discussed technical details and deployment strategies. This was my real world, one of innovation and impact, where my ideas were valued and my leadership respected." As the meeting concluded, General Harrison held me back. "The Joint Chiefs want to meet you tomorrow. Your background in both private enterprise and military service gives you a unique perspective they're interested in." I nodded, understanding the implication. My career was accelerating in ways I hadn't anticipated. "Also," he added with a slight smile, "your restaurant, the Blue Oak Bistro, my wife loves it, says it's the best risotto in Seattle." I laughed. "I'll pass that along to the chef." As I left the Pentagon that evening, my phone rang. It was Aunt Margie. "Sarah," she said, her usual commanding tone subdued. "I'm in D.C. for a conference. I wondered if you might have time for dinner?" I hesitated. Aunt Margie had been one of my harshest critics over the years. "I understand if you're busy," she added quickly. "I just thought, well, it seems we have a lot to catch up on." "Actually," I decided, "I know a great place near DuPont Circle. Meet me there at 7? She agreed eagerly, and I found myself curious about this new dynamic. What would conversation with my family be like now that the power balance had shifted? The restaurant was upscale but unpretentious, with private booths perfect for sensitive conversations. Aunt Margie arrived exactly on time, dressed impeccably as always, though she seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "You look different," she said after we ordered. "More confident." "I'm the same person I've always been," I replied. "You're just seeing me clearly for the first time." She nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. "Your father called me. He's processing. We all are. It's a lot to take in," I acknowledged. "Why a marketing cover?" she asked suddenly. You could have chosen anything, I smiled, because everyone underestimates marketing people. They think it's all fluff and creativity without substance. It was the perfect disguise. Like Clark Kent working as a journalist, she mused. Hidden in plain sight. Something like that. She studied me over her wine glass. You must have hated us sometimes. Not hated, I corrected, but I did resent the assumptions, the dismissal. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, she said, surprising me with her directness. And I'm impressed, not just with the military rank or the business success, but with your patience, your strategy. You played a long game. Coming from Aunt Margie, a woman known for her strategic thinking in the investment world, this was high praise indeed. Thank you, I said simply. So what happens now? She asked. With your company? Your restaurants? Will you remain on active duty? I'm figuring that out, I admitted. Bennett Strategic Solutions will continue under management while I fulfill my military obligations. The restaurants were always investments rather than passion projects. She nodded thoughtfully. If you need any financial advice for your expanded portfolio, I'd be happy to help. The offer was genuine, a peace offering and an acknowledgement of my new status. For the first time, Aunt Margie was treating me as an equal, perhaps even someone to be admired. By the time dessert arrived, we had moved beyond awkwardness into something resembling mutual respect. She told me about her daughter's college applications and asked my opinion on technology investments. I shared stories about my early days building my company, the challenges and triumphs she had never known about. When we parted, she embraced me warmly. The next family gathering will certainly be interesting, she said with a wry smile. Indeed it would. The Joint Chiefs meeting the next day was rigorous but productive. My perspective on integrating civilian and military technologies generated considerable interest, especially my proposals for public-private partnerships in space defense. As I left the meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Dad's organizing a family dinner tonight. Says he has an announcement. Should I be worried? I smiled. I'll be there. The restaurant my father had chosen was one of DC's oldest establishments, known for hosting power brokers and diplomats. When I arrived, Emily was already seated with our parents, Captain Marston beside her. My father stood as I approached, offering a formal handshake before pulling me into an unexpected hug. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. Once we were all seated, a waiter appeared with champagne. My father waited until our glasses were filled before clearing his throat. I have several things to say, he began. First, Captain Marston has been selected for promotion and reassignment to the Joint Task Force with the Space Reserve Corps. Emily beamed at her commanding officer, who nodded modestly. Second, my father continued, your mother and I have made a decision. We're establishing the Bennett Family Foundation, dedicated to supporting unconventional paths in both military and civilian sectors. I blinked in surprise. This was unexpected. We've seen firsthand how narrow our view of success has been, my mother added. We want to help others who might be overlooked because their talents don't fit traditional molds. My father reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. We'd like you to serve as the Foundation's first chairperson. Inside the envelope was a check for $1 million, seed money for the Foundation. Dad, I started, genuinely moved. He held up a hand. Consider it restitution for years of underestimating you. And an investment in your vision. Emily raised her glass. To the new Bennett family legacy, she toasted, one that values all forms of service and success. As we clinked glasses, I felt a shift finalizing, not just in how my family saw me, but in how we related to each other. The old hierarchy was gone, replaced by something more balanced, more genuine. Later, as we were finishing dessert, my father leaned closer. There's one more thing, he said quietly. I spoke with General Harrison today. He mentioned a special project they're considering you to lead, something about orbital defense systems? I nodded, surprised that he had reached out to my commanding officer. I told him you'd excel at it, my father continued. That strategic thinking runs in the Bennett blood, even if it manifests differently across generations. It was the first time he had ever connected my abilities to our shared heritage, acknowledging that I was a Bennett through and through, just not the kind of Bennett he had expected. "Thank you," I said simply. He nodded, understanding all that remained unspoken between us. As we left the restaurant, Emily fell into step beside me. "So, big sister," she said with a grin, "think you could pull some strings to get me assigned to your task force? I hear space is the place to be these days." I laughed. "I might know some people." She linked her arm through mine. "You know, all those years I thought I was the family success story. I was actually just the decoy while you were changing the world." "We're both changing it," I corrected, "just from different angles." She nodded thoughtfully. "The Bennett sisters, Navy and Space Force, Mom and Dad won't know what hit them." For the first time in years, I felt the burden of secrecy and resentment lifting. The path forward was clear, not just for my career, but for my family relationships. The revenge I had planned had transformed into something more powerful, a genuine revolution in how we saw and valued each other. Sometimes the best victory isn't defeating your opponents, but transforming them into allies who finally see your true worth. The following weeks brought changes I could never have anticipated. Bennett Strategic Solutions received offers from major defense contractors seeking partnerships. The restaurants flourished as their connection to me became public. My schedule filled with meetings at the Pentagon, interviews with security-cleared journalists, and family dinners that, for the first time, felt genuinely supportive. Cousin Claire called to apologize for years of condescension, admitting she had always been intimidated by what she perceived as my carefree attitude toward success. "You seemed so unconcerned with status," she explained. "It made me question my own ambitions." "Everyone's path is different," I told her. "Law works for you. Business and military service worked for me." "Do you think we could get coffee next time you're in Boston?" she asked hesitantly. I'd like to know my cousin better. These reconciliations happened one by one. Family members reaching out. Relationships reset on new foundations of mutual respect. The most profound change, however, was with Emily. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of my DC apartment watching the sunset, she confessed something I had never suspected. "I was jealous of you," she said, swirling her wine. "Not recently, but growing up." I nearly choked on my drink. "Jealous? Of me? You were the golden child." She shook her head. "You were free. You got to choose your path while I was locked into the family tradition. Don't get me wrong, I love the Navy, but sometimes I wondered what else I might have been good at." Her admission stunned me. All those years, we had each envied something about the other's life without ever speaking of it. "It's not too late. You know," I said, "you're only 30. You could explore other interests alongside your naval career." She considered this, watching the fading light paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Maybe I will," she said finally. "After all, my big sister proved that you can excel in multiple arenas simultaneously." As darkness fell over the city, I reflected on how differently everything had turned out from what I had planned. I had orchestrated my revelation as revenge, a calculated strike to humble my family and assert my worth. Instead, it had become a catalyst for healing, for redefining who we were to each other. The ultimate revenge wasn't making them feel small, as they had made me feel for so many years. It was growing large enough that they had to see me clearly at last, and in seeing me, recognizing the limitations of their own perspective. 2 months after the gala, I accepted a full-time position leading a new division within the Space Reserve Corps, focusing on next-generation defense systems. Bennett Strategic Solutions continued under the leadership of my trusted deputies, with me retaining strategic oversight. My parents converted part of their Boston home into a headquarters for the Bennett Family Foundation, which quickly gained recognition for its innovative approach to supporting unconventional talent in both military and civilian sectors. Emily received a special assignment working with NATO allies on international space security, a role that played to her diplomatic strengths while expanding her horizons beyond traditional naval operations. And I found myself not just accepted by my family, but celebrated for exactly who I was, not the daughter they had expected, but perhaps the one they needed all along. The final vindication came in the form of a feature in a prestigious military journal. The article, titled Unconventional Paths to Leadership, Major General Sarah Bennett's Dual-Sector Approach, included interviews with my commanding officers, business partners, and family members. My father was quoted saying, "Sarah showed us that excellence doesn't always wear the uniform we expect. Her approach to serving her country and building her business empire represents a new paradigm of American leadership." I framed that article, not out of vanity, but as a reminder that true success isn't measured by titles or bank accounts, but by staying true to yourself even when those closest to you fail to see your worth. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't telling people who you are, but showing them, on your own terms, in your own time. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is living well enough that those who dismissed you must reckon with their own blindness. As for me, I no longer need their validation. But I've discovered something unexpected in this journey. Forgiveness feels better than resentment, and rebuilding relationships is more satisfying than burning bridges. The Bennett family gatherings are different now. There's more listening, more genuine interest in each other's lives. The hierarchy has flattened, the competition faded. We're learning to be a family based on mutual respect rather than predetermined expectations. It's not perfect. Decades of patterns don't change overnight, but it's genuine progress. And in the end, that's a victory greater than any revenge I could have planned.